So today's topic is going to be a real tough one because I can't actually show you or let you visibly hear what's going on with this torque converter problem. The only thing I can do is describe it to you. I can't let you ride along with me in the truck and show you what it feels like and what it sounds like. It's just something real hard to capture on camera. So I'm going to do my best to describe this torque converter shutter to you. This has become a super common problem on forced transmissions, mostly all of them, but especially the 6R80s that came in the F150s and the Expeditions from 2009 to 2018, 09 and 18 being split years between 4R70W and 18, the 10R80. For those of you that don't know me, my name's Mason and I am a Ford technician. I work at a Ford dealership. So pretty much with all these videos, what I try to do is give you guys solutions and fixes to your problems, give you advice on what you should and shouldn't do. So if you haven't already subscribed, especially if you have a Ford, but it doesn't really matter, make or model, all this information is useful all the way across the board. But if you have a Ford, I would really recommend subscribing to this channel. I think you would get a lot of useful information from subscribing to this channel. So just go on and do it. Just hit that subscribe button and stick with me to the end. And if you like the video, hit that like button for me. It'd be awesome. It really helps me out. So I want to go ahead and solve this one up front. Big disclaimer, you don't actually have to pull the cab to do this repair. I just happen to have the cab off of a truck that also, for a separate reason, that also needed a torque converter. So I just pulled the transmission out of the top and I shot some video of it because I thought it looked super cool. So a lot of the overlay you're going to see in this video, the B-roll, is from that job, but you do not have to pull the cab to pull the transmission. I just don't want anybody thinking that that is necessary. So I want to start out, you guys out there that have 09 to 18 with the 6R80s that are having what you might consider as torque converter shutter. You might have heard that term, or you might not know what it is and you're doing research to figure it out. I want to start off by just telling you what the symptoms are. Most people that come in here with torque converter shutter either describe them as one of two things. They either describe it as an engine misfire, they say my truck's skipping, or they say my truck has a vibration. That is the two most common ways that I see torque converter shutter described. Most people don't actually know that it's a torque converter shutter. But what the torque converter shutter is when you're driving down the road, the best way I know how to describe it is the little rumble strip that's on the right side of the road, of some roads, not all roads, but the rumble strip that's on the right side of the road. When you run over that rumble strip, it makes like a rumbling noise. That's what torque converter shutter feels like the most to me. When you're driving, it's really more noticeable under a light acceleration. If you can put it in a big load, maybe like going up a hill, and give it a light acceleration, and it sounds like you're running over those rumble strips, but you're really not, then, and you have a 6R80, then you're probably experiencing torque converter shutter. Torque converter shutter can be probably one of the most annoying things I've ever experienced on vehicles that I've been like driving home or driving here or there. It is really aggravating to every time you want to add a little bit of power and go to have to deal with that it doesn't even really shake you in the seat, but you just feel it through, kind of through your seat, and you hear it more than anything. And it's just really aggravating. So super common question that I get in most of my other videos is the typical mileage, or what mileage that I'm seeing this problem happen at. And I got bad news for y'all. I can't actually give you a mileage because it's really all over the place. I see some of them with 60,000 miles. I see some with 100,000. I see some with 200,000 miles before their torque converter starts shuttering. So it's really all over the place. If I had to boil it down to one thing, I would say it's due to the driver's habits. how do you drive your vehicle? Are you real easy on it, or are you real harsh on it? You're constantly pulling trailers, or are you just driving back and forth to work like a daily commute? So that's really the typical mileage. I don't really see them with less than maybe 60. I could give you that, but they're just all over the place. It's really hard for me to tell you what the mileage is. So how do you fix this problem? If you're having this torque converter shutter, how do you fix it? And really, unfortunately, the only way to fix this problem is to replace the torque converter. There's a lot of people that I've seen do this. It's not a terrible idea if you just want to get rid of the noise for short term, but there's this stuff called rear end friction modifier, and what it does, you put it in your rear end. It's made to go in your rear end for the clutches, the lockup clutches, the locker in your rear end. This stuff actually will solve the problem temporarily. If you was to pour this in your transmission, a lot of the time it'll get rid of the shutter, but it doesn't last. It doesn't last maybe even more than a couple, 2 or 3 weeks. So the only real fix if you're going to keep the vehicle is to replace the torque converter. Although the rear end friction modifier would be a really good idea if you wanted to maybe run over and trade it in at your dealership. So what all is necessary to replace when you're replacing this torque converter? What all is necessary to solve the problem permanently? Of course, the torque converter, I've already said. A lot of shops and even dealerships will try to sell customers, or you being the customer, a full overhaul whenever you have a torque converter shutter in your transmission. They'll try to sell you just going through the transmission and completely rebuilding it. That is not necessary. It is absolutely not necessary to overhaul the entire transmission for a torque converter shutter. What they're trying to do is upsell you. They're trying to sell you extra parts and extra labor that you don't really need because they want more of your money. That's what's happening there. So don't think that just because you have this torque converter shutter that you're gonna have to have your transmission rebuilt. That is not what has to happen. Transmission has to come out, torque converter replaced. And the one thing that I always do whenever I pull these is I go ahead and when I have the transmission out, I throw it on the table, flip it upside down, snatch the pan off, I drain the fluid out. I try to get as much of the fluid out as I can. You're gonna get a lot of the fluid out just by that, but just by replacing the torque converter, I think it holds about 5-6 quarts just in that converter. And then when you dump the trans, you're getting most of the fluid out. So I just like getting clean fluid into the tranny after I put the torque converter in. It's just a good idea. You got all those clutch particles from the converter clutches, from the lockup clutches in the converter burning up and causing the shutter. That stuff gets in your fluid, and you just don't want that running around in your transmission for a ton of miles. So I always change the fluid, and the other thing I always do, of course, is I put a filter in it while I have the pan off. It's like $40. Why not just replace it while you got it, while you're there? It's a really, really good idea. So those are the only 3 things that I replace on these torque converters, and I don't have them come back. I've never had a torque converter that I've changed come back with transmission issues later down the road. So I don't recommend overhauling it or listening to anybody that tells you that you need it overhauled, because I haven't seen those problems with them. For those of you that have been sitting on the edge of your seat this entire video saying, oh shit, this is probably going to take all of my money out of my savings, I saved the best for last. I'm gonna let you know how much this cost. This job cost, now granted, I always say it varies based on your area because different places charge different amounts, but around about, the torque converter is $800 from Ford. OEM torque converter is $800. Though about the cheapest you're gonna get out on labor is around $1,000. That's what we usually do here. I think it's around $900 to $1,000 for us to pull the transmission, put a converter in it, flip it upside down, drain the fluid, put a filter in it, and put it back in. And the only other expenses you should have is the fluid and the filter, which may be $150, $200 for all that. So you're looking right at $2,000. This is going to eat $2,000 up really, really fast. And there's really just not much of a way around it. You could go to an aftermarket converter, but I'm not going to tell you to do that because I've never used one in a 6R80, so I don't know how they work. I don't want to give you guys advice that I haven't actually went through with and seen, tested, and how it works. So you can, but I'm not telling you to do that. 6R80 torque converters. I hope I've given you all the information you need to know about this shutter issue. all the info about what you got to replace, what it sounds like, and also, you know, how much it costs, which is unfortunate for a lot of you. But I gave you all this information, so I really hope it helps you out there, and I appreciate you watching this video. So if you haven't already subscribed, if you don't think this information is going to be useful, then I guess don't subscribe. But I think it's going to help a lot of people out, you know, just by me giving information about all these common issues that we see on the Fords and even other make and models. So if you would, hit that subscribe button and smash that like button if I gave you information that was helpful for you. So peace out. We'll see you in the next one, YouTube.